Loomers, happy Mother's Day and welcome to another extra tutorial I made for you all for this special occasion. And for today I decided to stick with my little Loomigurumi mojo I've been having lately with the extra tutorials that I've been making and make this one a Loomigurumi one too. This is my Helma flower. Now Helma is the name of my mother, so I named it after her. I love you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. Now, I am not a Loomigurumi expert, as you all know, and I'm just making stuff up as I go, so I hope you'll all be able to follow along. It's actually a very easy design, and of course I'll go slow and steady again and post the pattern in the description box below as well. Please stay tuned till the end of this video, because I will tell you all the tags you can use when you post your flowers, so I get to see them too. And I can show them to my mom. And I will also tell you how you can contact me if you want me to make a tutorial for one of your own designs. Okay, now also please excuse the constant sniffling, even more so as usual in this video, because I'm still fighting off the remnants of a cold again, the second one this year, so yuck. But yeah, we'll get through it together, right? Okay, enough yapping, let's grab some stuff and let's get blooming. To make my Helma flower, you will need your hook, of course, and for Loomigurumi designs, you can usually just use your regular hook or a crochet hook. I am sticking to my Loom hook, however, because I really love using that for hook-only designs and Loomigurumi. And you will need a stitch marker or any clip of some sort. A C-clip, easy clip, you can even use a paper clip or maybe a bobby pin or a hairpin, whatever you can use to keep count by clipping off a band. So it has to be something that you can put on a band and take off and put on and take off. Okay, so be creative. You can definitely just use your regular clips for that as well. And of course we will need some bands. I am going to use pink jelly for the heart of the flower, like I did here as well, and just regular opaque white bands for the petals. Now, if you want to stuff your petals, you can do that, of course. I didn't do it for mine because I feel like the petals keep their shape pretty well, and the fluff coming out through the stitches really triggers me. So, anyhow, please remember that you can always pause the video to catch up, rewind to watch something again, and of course you can always speed me up if I'm going too slow for you. I will skip through the boring or repetitive parts myself. And just press pause when that happens. I will put timestamps in my video again, so you can jump to certain parts really quickly by clicking the chapters below. And as I said earlier, I will post a pattern in the description box below as well, of course, for those of you who want to work off a pattern. Okay, that should be it. Let's go! Okay, now we're going to start by making the heart of our flower first. That is that pink jelly part that you see here, the heart of the flower, okay? And that's just a simple magic ring of 5. Since we have 5 petals, we need a magic ring of 5. So make sure that you grab some bands in the color that you want to use for your heart of the flower and a marker. I'm going to use a stitch marker for that. And the first thing we're going to do is make a cap band. So you simply place a band on your hook, give it a twist and put the other end on your hook like that. We all know how to do that by now, I bet, right? And I am keeping mine in check with my little stitch marker buddy over here, because that keeps the bands together and I just find it easier to work with. So I know that I am sticking my hook through the right bands in a minute. Now we are going to make a magic ring. So that means that we're going to add 5 stitches around the 2 loops of the cap band, okay? Make sure that you always put your hook in through the same side of the cap band, so just grab a hold of it. And the first stitch, you are going to grab a band, pull it through both loops of the cap band, close it up, pull the front end through the back end, and that is 1 stitch. I bet you all know how to do that, right? Loomigurumi expert, you probably know more than me. Okay, now go in through the same way in your cap band, and we're going to do this 4 more times, and we're going to sew these stitches together, of course. So, oh, slippery jelly bands. So you're going to make your stitch, pull the front end through the back end, and then pull the front band through the back loop, sewing your 2 stitches together. So now we have 2 stitches. One is here, and one is on your hook. Okay, we're going to do this 3 more times until we have 5. So make your stitch, pull it through the cap band. Oh, these jelly bands are so slippery. Pull the front end through the back end and sew the halves together, the stitches together. Again, make your stitch and sew both stitches together. Last time. Make your stitch and both stitches together. Now we have 5 stitches on our cap band. Let me see. We have 1 on our hook, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now to close it up, what you always do with Loomigurumi is you make your last stitch of the round in the first stitch of the previous round. So you always pick up that first stitch of the previous round. Well, in this case, we only have 1 round, right? That doesn't really count as a stitch, but for this round, but it does count as the first stitch for the next round. And we simply do that to make sure that we can keep track of where we are in the pattern, okay? Normally you make a normal stitch for this, but for this design, what we're going to do is make a slip knot. So you're going to pull your next band through both loops, so through that stitch that you picked up, but also through the stitch that's on your hook. Close it up and make your slip knot. Don't make it too tight and just keep that loop on your hook for now, because we're going to be working with these 5 loops on our hook when we are making the petals. Okay, so just keep it on your hook for now. And what you can do to make it easier, if you want to move away from your table or whatever, put your stitch marker on that loop. We always do that too, right? So when you finish a round, you always make sure that your last stitch goes through the first stitch of the previous round. That closes off a round of stitches. And then you put your stitch marker on that loop. So you always know, hey, that's loop number 1 of the next round, okay? Now grab the colors that you want to use for your petals so we can continue with those. Okay, now for the petals, I am going to make 2 of these with you, and then you can do the 3rd and the 4th one yourselves, and we'll do the 5th one together again, because all these petals are basically the same, right? But I am going to show you how you can join them together while looming, right? You can always do this later if you want to too with a slip knot, or just not sew them together at all and have your flower made up out of loose petals. But I like sewing them together so they keep their shape a little bit better, right? Totally up to you though. And the first one will not be attached to anything, of course, but with the second one, I'm going to show you how you can attach it to the first one. And you're going to do the same thing for the second and the third. You're always going to add it to the previous, stitch it through the previous petal. And the 5th one, we're going to have to stitch together on 2 sides, of course, because that meets the first petal. Okay, now where we ended was with our hook through our loose slip knot that we made in the heart of the flower, right? Now grab a bunch of your petal band so we can continue. Okay, now what we are going to do, instead of picking up the whole stitch here where our little slip knot is on, right? We are only going to pick up the outside loop of that stitch. Normally you pick up the whole stitch and then make your stitch there and you're going to work your Loomigurumi, right? But for this design, you're going to work with separate parts of that same stitch. What I also want you to do is keep an eye on the direction that your teardrop shape of that magic ring is going while we're working. As you can see, the pointy bit will always be on the right side of me. You see the teardrop shape of the stitch is going like that. Wait, let me show you here. You see, you have your teardrop shape like that. So we're always working from the pointy bit to the chubby bit. Okay, so make sure that the pointy bit is always on your right side or on your left if you're left, of course. Okay, now for this first stitch, you are also going to pull it through this loose loop here of that slip knot that you made. And that is just to hide it. Okay, so that's just for this very first petal alone. Okay, so again, you're going to pick up the outside loop of that first stitch alone. Grab your petal colored band and just make your stitch by pulling it through both of these bands, so that outside loop of that stitch and also the loop that was on your hook. Okay, close it up and just make your stitch. The only thing that accomplishes is that it ties in that loose loop of the slip knot that we made earlier, right? Okay, now since this is the first stitch, I am going to put my stitch marker on there. Just to mark the first stitch of our new round, okay? You always do that. That's just to keep count. Now you're going to pick up the same loop again. So the outside loop of that first stitch. Put another stitch in there, right next to its body. There. And now you're going to cross over to the other side and you're going to pick up the other side of that stitch that you just put the two loops in. Okay, do you see what I'm doing? So you have that's the same stitch that you're picking up, but just the inside loop of it. And you're also going to put two stitches through there. So that's one, pick it up again. In the beginning it's always a little bit finicky, right? And that is 2. Okay, so now we have made 4 stitches, but what you always do, as I mentioned before, to finish off a round of stitches, you always put one last stitch through the first stitch of the previous round. So that doesn't count as a 5th stitch for this round, but just as the first stitch for the next round. That is just to, whoops, chop that one to the moon. It's just so you can keep track on where you are going, okay? So make your last stitch to close off the round. Come here. And 2, and move your stitch marker again. So it's always in the first stitch of the next round. So as you can see now, we have made 4 stitches in that one stitch of the heart of the flower. We have one of our stitches here, that's on our hook, right? 2, 3, 4. Nice little square, you see? Now what we're going to do to continue is we want to get 6 stitches in total. So that means that we're going to increase every other stitch. So that means that you're going to put 1 extra stitch in this same stitch that you have your first stitch in already. That's what an increase is, putting 2 stitches in 1 stitch. Okay, the next stitch will just be a regular one, not an increase. Because I said every other one we're going to be increasing. So that's a regular one. And then the next one, so the third stitch, is going to be an increase again. So we're going to put 2 stitches through that stitch. 1. The next one, come here. And 2. And then in our fourth stitch, we are going to put just 1 stitch again. There, now we have 6 stitches. I will count in a minute, but again, to finish off a round, always put your last stitch through the stitch where your stitch marker is on to finish off the round. So that stitch doesn't count, but it's the first stitch for the next round. Unclip your marker, reclip, there. So let me open it up a little bit. So now we have 6 stitches, right? Because we had 4, we increased twice. 4 plus 2 is 6. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't count this one because that's where this stitch is on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? What we're going to be doing now is increase all of these stitches. So that means that you're going to put 2 stitches through every stitch here until we have a total of 6 times 2 is 12 stitches. Okay, so you're going to go back inside that first stitch and you are going to increase them all. So make your next stitch next to that, grab the next stitch, make 2 stitches in that one, and you're going to finish off the round like this, making 2 stitches in each stitch until you get to the stitch where your stitch marker is in. Okay? Our last one. Also an increase, so 2 stitches, and now we're back at where our stitch marker is. So to finish off the round, we are going to put one last stitch through there. There. Unclip your clip and reclip it on that first loop for the next round. Okay. And now we should have 12 stitches, right? Because we had 6 and we doubled up. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Don't count this one because I already counted it. That's on my hook, right? Now we are going to do 12 regular stitches. So you're just going to go round and make 12 until you get to the stitch marker again. So we already did our first one. Let me pick up the next stitch. We're just going to do this whole round, just regular single stitches until we get, as I said, to our stitch marker again. And the last one. There we go. Oh, don't lose it at the last second. Up. And we are back at our stitch marker again. So to finish off the round, we make our last stitch in there. So we can move our stitch marker again. Unclip and reclip so, to mark it off. Okay, so we have 12 stitches going round now again. And what we're going to do for the next round, we are going to decrease every other stitch. That is 4 total decreases. So 12 minus 4, that means that we will be left with 8 stitches when we're done. Okay, now we already have our first stitch made, so we're going to decrease the next one. And to make a decrease, some people pick up 2 stitches like so or like so. But what I have learned from old-time Loomigurumi artists is that you always pick up the inside part of that first stitch that you're going to be decreasing, and you sew that together with the back part of the next stitch. That just looks better in the end. Okay, so again, you pick up the front part of that first stitch, that first loop, and the back part of the next one. Then you're just going to pull through and pretend like it's a regular stitch. Okay, now as I said, we're going to decrease every other stitch. So this one is going to be a normal one, a normal stitch, and then we're going to do a decrease again. So pick up the back side of that first, the front, or depends on how you look at it, I guess, and stitch those two together for the next decrease. The next stitch will be a regular stitch again, and then we're going to do a decrease again, pick up the back part and the front part of the next, and sew these together, and there. And then the next one is a regular stitch again, because we were decreasing every other. And then the next one, until right before our stitch marker, is a decrease again, the fourth one. So you're going to sew these stitches together. And then to finish off the round, you guessed it, you put your last stitch through the one where your marker is on. Like that. Unclip your marker, reclip your marker. There we go. Now, you see, our flower is getting a little bit of a shape already. Now we should be left with 8 stitches. So let's count and hope that I did it correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, looks like I managed to pull that off. Now what we're going to do is make one round of regular stitches, just singles, 8 in total, until we get back to our stitch marker. Okay, so just single stitches all around. That's 7. And here is my 8th one. And to finish off the round, make your last stitch. It's kind of like an anchor stitch, right? Because the stitch marker or whatever marker you're using is kind of like your anchor. So you know from where you have to start counting your next round. Okay, so now we have our 8 stitches again going round. And what we're going to do now to close off our flower petal, because we're almost done, you see? Almost at the end here. What we're going to do now is decrease 3 times. So this will be a little bit finicky because it's already a small circle, right? We're going to decrease 3 times. So we already made our first stitch. So we're going to decrease the next ones. Pick up the back end of the first and the front of the next. Sew these together. Oh, don't lose it, Joyce. Sew these together like that. Then you're going to do the next ones the same, also a decrease. Sew these together as well. And then the next two, also going to sew these together. See, it's a little bit finicky. And there we go. That's 3 decreases. And now I'm going to make my last stitch of this petal in the one where my stitch marker is on. And this will be the stitch that closes off this petal. Okay, so when I put my hook through it, I'm just going to unclip my marker. You could put it to the side for now. And your last stitch will be a slip knot. So that means that you pull it through both loops of the stitch you just picked up. Pull it through the stitch that was on your hook. Close it up. Pull the front end through the back end and give it a good tug. Don't yank too hard so you snap it. Just give it a good tug like that. And that finishes off the petal. See, so what we're going to do now is stick our hook through it. And you come out at the top a little bit next to that loose little floppy bit over here. And I always struggle with it because my hook always gets stuck on the inside. How about you guys? But you pick up that loose little floppy bit here and you try to hide it in the center by pulling your hook out. Like that. Let go. Then of course we wink, 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 wink. A little bit like that. That's our first petal done. Okay? Okay, now the next 3 petals are all exactly the same, but since we're stitching them together on one side to the previous petal, I'm going to show you how to make the second one, okay? But if you want to make the third and the fourth ones together as well, you can always jump back to this point where it says second, third and fourth petals, and we can make all these petals together, right? Because they're just exactly the same. And otherwise, if you think you have it from here, well, my doggy is running for the hills, you can always stay hanging here after we finish this section, this petal I mean, so I can show you how you are going to make the last one, the 5th one. Okay, now we're going to have to start by identifying the spot for the next petal first. So it is on the left of the finished one for me because we, as I said in the beginning, always want to make sure that the teardrop shapes of the heart of the flower are always pointing the same way if we're beginning, when we're starting, right? And mine was with the point to the right. Okay, so the point of my teardrop shape will always, of this stitch, will always be pointing to the previous petal. So we're going to do this the same, make this petal the same way as we made this one by picking up the outside loop of that first stitch and make 2 stitches in there. So let's do that. And since this is the first stitch, I am going to put my stitch marker in there to mark it. Always do that, it just makes keeping track of where you are in the design, in the pattern, way easier, okay? So, and next one goes next to it. Like that, and then we're going to cross over to the other side of that same stitch and pick up the inside loop of it and make 2 stitches in there. That's one and a buddy right next to it. and that's 2. Okay, so we have 4 stitches in total now, but as I mentioned before, to end a round of stitches, you're always going to put your last stitch through the first stitch of the previous round, just to close up the circle, close up the round. So we're going to do that, and that stitch counts as the first stitch for the next round. Unclip your marker, reclip it. Okay, now this design closes up a little bit because it's only 4 stitches. Let me open it up. We have 4 stitches now. 1 here, the one that's on my hook, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now what we're going to do is the same thing as we did with the first petal. We're going to increase every other one. So that means that we will be increasing the first one where we already have our stitch in. So we're going to make another stitch right next to that. The next one will be a regular stitch. Oh, I think I only have 1 loop. Yeah, there we go. And the next one will be an increase again. So the next stitch, finicky finicky, we'll get 2 stitches through it. That's 1. And another one right next to it in that same stitch. That's 2. And the last stitch is just a regular one. So we had 4 and we increased twice, so we're left with 6 stitches. But make sure that you close off the round by putting your last stitch through that first stitch where your marker is in of the previous round. Always do that. That is that stitch. Unclip and reclip. There. So now we have 6 stitches, as I said. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now what we're going to do is increase them all until we have 12 stitches in total. So that means that we're going to put another one next to the one we already have our first stitch in, and we're going to put 2 stitches through every stitch, all 6 stitches that we have here now. That's 1 in this stitch, the second one in this stitch. Just do this all the way until you reach your stitch marker again, increasing them all. That is 1. I only need 1 band. And that is 2. The next one also gets 2. And the next one also gets 2. And then we're back at our stitch marker. So we're going to put our final stitch through there, just a single one, just to close off this round. Unclip and reclip. And we have our 12 stitches now. 12, yes. Okay. Now we are going to do 12 regular stitches again. So just singles going all the way around. But let me show you, we have our second petal here now, but when we get to our 12th stitch, which is the one just before the stitch marker, we are going to sew that together with the previous petal. Okay, I will show you when we get there. So you're just making a round of singles, but for the last stitch just before the stitch marker, hang on, I'm going to show you how we can sew these 2 petals together. Okay, so let's do that. Just singles going all the way around. Almost there. This is 11, so here is our 12th stitch, and we want to attach that stitch we want to attach our petal, to the petal right next to it. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to pick up that last stitch, the 12th stitch. Oh, let me get into frame here. And you're also going to choose two loops that you're going to pick up of the flower petal next to it. So I am just, flattening my petals a little bit and just winging it, going by eye and picking a spot right next to it. I think this will be okay. Right? And you're simply going to put your next stitch through both of these. So just pull it through the two loops that you picked up of that previous petal and pull it through this regular stitch of the petal that you're working on. Close it up and just finish your stitch as usual. It's a little bit more tight, but you can do it. You have enough room on your band for that. And then you finish off the round by putting your last stitch through the one where your stitch marker is on. Okay, so there we go. Unclip and reclip. So now we have sewn our two petals together and we can continue as usual. So what we're going to do now is we're going to decrease every other stitch, just like we did with the first. So that is 4 total decreases, so that we will be left with 8 stitches. Now we already made our first stitch here, right? That's the one in the marker. So we're going to decrease the next one. Every other, whoops, shot that one to the moon as well. The moon is littered with loom bands. And maybe even Mars. The next one will be a regular stitch. Oh. And the next one will be a decrease again. So you grab the front of that first loop and the back of the next. The next one is a regular stitch. And the next one is a decrease again. And then we have a regular stitch. And then our last decrease, which is right before our stitch marker. Now that first stitch is easy to grab. The second one is actually the stitch where our first petal is attached to, right? Your previous petal is attached to. So that's a tiny loop that's a little bit tighter, but just grab the back end of that as well. That's a decrease. So these together. And that's it. To finish off the round, exactly. Make sure that you put your last stitch through the one where your stitch marker is on to finish off the round. So unclip and reclip. And if we done it correctly, we have 8 loops now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's correct. Phew. Now we're going to do one regular round of 8 stitches. Okay, so just singles, just one extra round of 8 stitches. It's getting a little bit tighter. Just open it up a little bit. Don't yank on it too hard because that warps the shape of the petal, but just open it up a little bit if you feel like it's closing up a little bit too much on you. Okay. And this is the last one of the 8th. And then to finish off the round, our marked stitch. There, unclip, reclip, there. Another round of 8 stitches. Now we are going to close up our petal, just like we did here. So we're going to decrease 3 times. So the next stitches we're going to sew together, decrease them. Next one's 2, our second decrease. I hope it's easy enough for you all to follow, guys. And the next one is a decrease as well. A little bit finicky because we're closing up our petal, of course. There. Decrease that one as well. And then the last one is you're going to pick up the whole marked stitch and you're going to do your slip knot again to close up, oops, to close up this petal. Okay, so you pull your band through all 3 loops, close it up, pull the front end through the back end, give it a little bit of a tug. You can unclip your, I'm sorry, still the cold. You can unclip your stitch markers, what I wanted to say, and we always squish a little bit with our petal to give it a nice shape, and then we put our hook in through the bottom, coming out at the top to hide our loose loop in the middle a bit. So pull on it a bit, there we go. There we have it, our second petal attached to the first one. See? It's not a really hard pattern, is it? Now, I think you got it from here for the third and the fourth petal, but if you need more help, as I said before, and you want to make the rest of the petals together, you can go back to the timestamp that says second, third, and fourth petals at the start of this petal we just made and follow along from there. And if you're ready for your fifth and final petal, stay hanging here, but make sure that you are at the point where you just increased all 6 stitches. Halfway, right? So that you have a total of 12 stitches and we'll pick it up from there. Okay, so we started our 5th petal and are in our first row of the 12 stitches, right? Where we just increased all stitches of the 6 that we had before. So we're left with 12 stitches, and this petal is a bit different from the other 4, as I mentioned before, because we're going to stitch it together with the 2 flanking petals instead of just the one on this side, okay? So we're going to do our round of 12 regular stitches now, just singles, but on the 4th stitch, you're going to stitch it together with your petal on this side, and with the 12th stitch, as we've been doing this whole time, on this side, okay? And then just continue as normal to finish off our flower, okay? So I am going to continue counting. This is the first stitch already, right? It always counts as the first stitch. So this is 2, just regular stitches. My 3rd. And then the 4th, we are going to stitch together with the very first petal that we made. So do the same thing as we did earlier. You're going to pick up that stitch and also pick up 2 loops of the flanking petal. So let me see, I think here somewhere, let's see if I can grab 2 loops here to give it a nice shape. Does that look good to you? I think that's the right place, right? And then we're just going to make a regular stitch. So you're going to pull that band under those 2 loops that you picked up from that petal and of the petal that you are working on. Just make a regular stitch, okay? And then we're going to finish off the round as usual. Where am I? Here am I. There we go. So just continue making your other stitches until you get to the 12th, which is always the one right before the marked stitch. And that one you are going to stitch together on the other side, with the petal on the other side. There. There we go. Now here is our our 12th stitch, our second to last, I wanted to say. We're going to pick up 2 loops of that previous petal that we made. Let me see. These. It's a bit too much to the back for me. I'm going to pick up these, I think. Let me see, in between here, let me fiddle a bit. What do you think? I think that's a good spot. Just sew these together like we did on the other side. And make our regular stitch. A little bit tight it is now. And then put your last stitch through the one where your marker is on. Oh, shove that one to the moon as well. The man in the moon must be so surprised with all those rubber bands flying around him. The last stitch and reclip. There we go. And now we're going to finish off as normal. So we're going to decrease every other stitch. So a total of 4 decreases until we're left with 8 stitches in total. Okay, so we already made, let me go, our first stitch. So we're going to decrease the next one. Every other stitch, okay? You know how to do this by now, right? If you made all the other petals. Next one is a normal one and then a decrease again. Oh, well, my neighbor decides to grab a hammer at this point. Oh my goodness. There we go. Decrease on the next one. I am just going to continue filming, hoping it won't be any worse than this. They're always DIYing. And then another, let me see, another decrease. And then a regular one. And the last one will be a decrease as well. Oh no, the hammering is kind of throwing me off, guys. I hope it's not too bad for you. We'll quickly finish off this tutorial. And the last stitch always goes in the marked one, like that. And of course, now unclip and reclip. Now we are going to do a round of 8 regular stitches, just like we did with the previous petals. So we're going to do that. Let me see. Just finish off your petal as usual. I am praying that he won't start hammering again. Please pray with me so we can finish off our petal. There, and another, oh, did I miss one? Oh no. This one here. Stitch number 8. And finish off the round as usual by putting your last stitch through the marked one. Oh, it looks like I'm sewing in my stitch marker. Unclip and reclip. And then we are going to do the same thing as we did before. Decrease 3 times. So we already have our stitch here. So we're going to decrease the next 3. To close off our last petal. That's 1. As you can see, I'm always opening up my design a little bit, my petal a little bit, so I can see what I'm doing. That's 2. And, oops. Come here. And that is not the right one, Joyce. This is it. That's 3. Almost done. Close it up. There. And now to finish off our flower, you're going to put your last stitch, just like with the other petals, through the stitch marked, to the one that has the stitch marker in it, but this one will be a slip knot, of course. So pull your band through all 3 loops and make a slip knot. Don't pull too hard, just give it a tug, unclip, and stick your petal. Oop, that was miss. Come out the top and hide the loose loop. Oh, I felt that that didn't go through right. Let me do that again. Just pull your loose loop through. There. Give it a little squish, of course. Fix the bands that you feel like need fixing. There we have it. My super cute and plump Helma flower, named after my mom. Well, that was it for today, my lovely Looney Loomers. I hope you all had fun making my new Loomigurumi flower, and I'm looking forward to seeing what colors you all come up with so I can show those to my mom. So, when you have made your flowers and you post them on social media, please don't forget to tag me and use the hashtags you see on your screen right now so I can see them too. I would love that. I will post these tags in the box below as well as usual, of course. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel so I know you want me to keep making the tutorials for you with the button you see right here in the corner. And come find me on Instagram and Facebook too for more of my content and creations. You'll find the link to those in the description box below as well. And I often give sneak peeks over there of upcoming designs and tutorials. And if you have any questions or comments, or if you have made a design of your own you want me to make a tutorial for, please feel free to message me here on Messenger, on Instagram, everywhere you can find me. You can always send me a private message if you want to. Don't be shy, you're always welcome with me. Now stay tuned, turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything, and happy Mother's Day everyone! Stay colorful, stay creative, but most of all, stay loony. That's all folks.